From NBC News in Washington, this is Meet the Press with Tim Russert.
Our issues this Sunday morning: peace in the Middle East. Will it last? We'll ask the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. The election just 9 days away. Who is going to vote? Who is going to win? What's at stake? With us, the General Chairman of the Democratic Party, Governor Roy Romer. The Republican Governor of New Jersey, Christine Todd Whitman. Liberal activist and organizer, Reverend Jesse Jackson. And conservative activist and organizer, Gary Bauer. Romer, Whitman, Jackson, and Bauer square off on the importance of Election Day 1998. And will this election be interpreted as a referendum on the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal? Has the Republican Revolution fizzled out? Insights and analysis from both sides with the world's most partisan Democrat, James Carville, and his very Republican wife, Mary Madeline. And in our Meet the Press Minute, this Thursday, John Glenn goes back into space, just as he predicted here on Meet the Press some 35 years ago.
I feel as long as we stay in good shape and can keep qualified, I don't see increasing age as any obstacle here.
But first, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu returned home late last evening. Before he left, he talked about the bitter controversy over the spy, Jonathan Pollard, and I asked him about the impact of the peace agreement on Israel.
Well, it gave up territory, which is very painful for us. It's part of our national homeland, but it's a commitment that the previous government made and I keep. It gained, for the first time, a verifiable process of measuring and ensuring Palestinian compliance in fighting terrorism, and in word and in deed.
Already back home, there are former supporters of yours waving a letter that you wrote in 1996 when you ran, saying you would never relinquish territory. What do you say to them?
That is not true. I never said that. In fact, before I ran, I made it clear that we would honor the Oslo Accords, providing the Palestinians kept their part.
When this agreement is fully implemented, the Palestinians will control about 41% of the West Bank. Does that make a Palestinian state inevitable?
What is at stake now is the remaining territory, which is so vital for Israel's defenses. And we have to strike a bargain, a deal, that ensures the Palestinians' desire to run their own lives, but ensure Israel's desire to protect its life. I don't believe that a fully fledged sovereign entity that can bring an army onto the hills above Tel Aviv, that can make a military pact with Iraq or with Iran. That's what sovereign states can do. I don't believe that's the prescription for peace. We'll have to have limitations on certain sovereign powers of the Palestinian entity. And this job of balancing Palestinian needs and Israeli needs, especially for security, can only be done through a negotiating process, which I'm committed to do, and which we've essentially embarked on with the end of the Y talks and the Y agreement.
In 1993, Yasser Arafat said, the Palestinian flag will soon fly over Jerusalem. Will that ever happen?
No. Never. Never happen. Jerusalem's been the capital of the Jewish people for the last 3,000 years, from the days of King David. And only recently, only in the last 30 years, really, 31 years, since 1967, the Six-Day War, when the city was reunited under Israel, has it been the haven and worshiping ground of all three religions without anyone being interrupted. It's only Israel, and Israel alone, in the history of Jerusalem, that has allowed all three religions to worship there in an unfettered way. I'm committed to that, and that will always be our policy. But we will never, ever divide that city or build or rebuild the Berlin Wall in the center of it. That will not happen.
In 1994, you wrote the following question. Can anyone seriously trust Arafat? What's the answer?
Well, I fall back on a good American saying known in Washington. I think one of your presidents coined it. It's called trust but verify. So I verify.
Can he control his people, particularly terrorist groups?
Absolutely.
Hamas?
Yes, he can, but he has to make a decision to confront them, and that is essentially what is required if the peace is to go forward. Now, I can't say that he can control every single terrorist foray. That is not serious. But remember that after he received territory from the previous government, he struck a deal. The deal in Oslo was he gets territory and he fights terrorism. The opposite happened. He got terrorism and we got a tenfold increase of terrorism emanating from the territories under Palestinian control. What I've been very firm on, and very insistent on, is to say if you want more territory from Israel, and under the agreement I have to give them some, and I did, then you have to assure me that you will fight the terrorists in the territory that you already have, let alone the new ones that you'll get.
One of the senior members of your party, former Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir, said that you're more interested in holding on to political power than serving the needs of your nation.
Well, if I was, I certainly wouldn't do this agreement. This would be a terrible mistake to do because I put myself at a considerable political risk, as you yourself know. I may very well, the government may or may not fall. I don't think it will. I think cooler heads will prevail. And you need to use your head, not only your heart. You need both. But I think undoubtedly, I was willing to take on a personal risk, personal political risk, and perhaps others. But I'm not willing to take on a security risk for my country. That I will not do. And that's what I've fought for.
One of the more controversial aspects of this discussion here in Washington was Jonathan Pollard, the spy who sold American secrets. And you asked that he be returned to Israel. Why did Jonathan Pollard spy in the United States? Why would Israel spy on its closest friend and ally?
I don't know. I wasn't running the government at the time, and I pledged that this would never happen again. My predecessors already did that. But I came out clean. I said, look, he was working for us. That had never been admitted before. It was a terrible, terrible mistake to have done that. And he has paid a price. He's been there for 13 years. He did not compromise, to my knowledge, American security in the sense of giving us things that we would in any way compromise the United States. Our alliance with the United States is so deep. It's forged by such deep bonds of interest and values that Israel, I think you will not find a greater ally, a better ally for the United States than Israel. And I can tell you in the time that I've been in office that we have passed on to the United States all the information and the intelligence that is important to save American lives that we possess on more than one occasion. But in the case of Pollard, it was a mistake. He has served his time. He is practically in solitary confinement for 13 years. I appealed to the president on purely humanitarian grounds to release him and let him come to Israel.
Did the president give you any indication that he was willing to do that?
Well, I think we discussed it. I didn't discuss it, by the way, in the very last moment, as some have said. I had raised it some time ago. But I think the president told me there's a process here that he must go through and verify, and he cannot commit to, at this point, what the result will be once he undergoes that process.
But there was a sense the president gave you some indication that he'd be favorably disposed, and the word leaked out that Jonathan Pollard was being released.
I'm not going to get into this discussion. I think there's no point for me to delve into this issue. I do hope that the sense of mercy will prevail because I don't think Pollard is endangering the United States. I believe that he served his time, and I think that, I've been asked to make sacrifices for peace, which I did. And also release Palestinian prisoners, hundreds of them. And I would hope that a way would be found, not necessarily around this juncture, but not too far away, where...
Months, years?
I cannot say that, but I hope as soon as possible.
Former Secretary of Defense Caspar Weinberger said that he, in fact, jeopardized Americans all across the world, that the amount of secrets he gave away would fill this entire room, and that he should have been shot or hanged.
Well, I don't know of that kind of information that reached Israel. And he certainly wasn't doing it, at least in what I know of what he dealt with us. He wasn't doing it in any way to hurt the United States, but in a mistaken effort to help Israel. He certainly didn't want to injure the United States, which is what differentiates him from, for example, from spies who spied directly for the Soviet Union and knew that everything that they were passing was going to be detrimental to the security and safety of the United States and its people. This is not what he did with us, but I don't want to in any way reduce or minimize the gravity of what he did. I do want to say that I hope that a way will be found to, on a humanitarian ground.
Why are you so interested in getting him to Israel?
We have a certain value, which I think is shared by the United States as well, because I saw with admiration the way you strove over many years to find every MIA, to get the people who served, who worked on behalf or fought on behalf of the United States, or even spied on behalf of the United States, to get them home. And this is a very deep value for Israel. It's one that is grounded in thousands of years of our history, in numerous battlefields and in numerous other situations.
Do you believe that one day Jonathan Pollard will be in Israel?
I'm doing my damnedest that that will happen, I hope, and I'd like to believe that it will happen.
This is a very serious time for you, as you know. In fact, the Jerusalem Report, a magazine in Israel, said that this agreement, quote, could very well put your life at risk. Are you prepared for that?
Well, there are people who are prepared for that, so I assume we've already encountered that calamity, and I don't think any of us are oblivious to it, but I would hope that this is something that I don't have to think about. And I can tell you that I generally don't think about it. I think of the political consequences, and I work at them, or at least now I'll have to work at them. I didn't have time to really deal with them in the last the last 10 days. I even had the great fortune of not reading a single bit of press, which, by the way, is not bad.
Just watch TV. You're much better.
No, I didn't watch TV either. I absolutely did no reading and no watching of TV.
But as you know, these issues are so divisive in Israel. There are people who will take to the gun if they believe it will further their cause.
Well, I think I've got a notice on my head, so to speak, from the leader of the Hamas. So we already know that there's an organized effort on that score. So I don't look around my shoulder personally. I really don't. I don't do that.
President Clinton,
if you do, by the way, the minute you begin to think in those terms, you're paralyzed, and you cannot do anything. And you're put in a position of responsibility and of leadership to lead. And to lead means that you cannot, you have to look forward. You can't look all the time behind your back, especially concerning personal fear. At that point, governments, nations become immobilized, and they cannot function.
As you know, President Clinton has had his difficulties back home here. Do you believe that his participation in this summit will portray him as a strong and effective leader?
Well, he was very helpful in the Y talks, and was important. And I think he acted what the role of the United States should be, which is to facilitate. And he definitely did that, and he did that, I think, with talent and with perseverance. Considerable talent, and may I say considerable perseverance. It is true that it is up to the leaders themselves, of the two parties, to make the decisions at the end, and no one can substitute for them, but it sure helps to have a friendly hand, and the president definitely gave it. But I don't want to delve into your internal politics. I have enough of mine.
Go ahead. Come on.
Well,
jump
listen,
right in.
I'll let you deal with your politics, and I'll deal with mine.
But you prefer that President Clinton be around next year to help you continue this peace agreement.
I am absolutely confident that the friendship that we enjoy with the United States, under President Clinton, under past presidents, Republicans and Democrats alike, is a mainstay of the friendship between our two countries. And I am just not going to enter into your political foray. You have your Sunday program. You do it at the... You don't need me for that.
And on that note, coming next, Election Day 1998. For the Democrats, Governor Roy Romer and Jesse Jackson. For the Republicans, New Jersey Governor Whitman and Gary Bauer. Then our political art couple, Democrat Carville, Republican Madeline. Our Meet the Press Minute, John Glenn, back in the space, then and now, coming up on Meet the Press.
Meet the Press is sponsored by the Archer Daniels Midland Company. ADM, supermarket to the world.
The following is a commercial message from the Archer Daniels Midland Company.
The Warsaw Pact and NATO, mankind striving for military security. Even when we are all militarily secure, hunger persists. What about global food security? Well-fed countries like ours may forget that we enjoy abundant, affordable food, but the world's hungry people have abandoned their homelands, even surrendered their freedom, in a quest for food. Probably we'll always have maps and borders to divide us, but when it comes to feeding the hungry, shouldn't we think of a world without borders? We have heard the warnings. If we haven't, our children will. The warnings from those who believe that hunger, simple hunger, could become the global security issue of the 21st century. Shouldn't everyone have the right to enough to eat? Think about it.
To prepare for world food demands, ADM doubles capacity every 5 years. We're not just thinking about how to feed the world, we're working to make it happen.
The color of trust. One of the colors between the colors, created by Canon. Canon Laser Color. Its only competition is reality.
Every moment, every dream, every challenge, for every step you take in life, there's GE, a financial partner you can trust. Take advantage of our expertise in insurance and investments and get the innovation you've come to expect. So think of GE when you think of insurance and investments for every step you take.
Matt, got your email. Vancouver? Genius. Passed it on to Epps. He's running it through the Northwest.
Hey, Matt. Ideas are hitting the Northwest. I've got purchasing checking suppliers.
We want it up top. Client briefing. Your Vancouver idea.
Want to take your business to the next level?
And we're back. Welcome all. Governor Whitman, let me start with you there in New Jersey. Back in September, you suggested that President Clinton should resign, that his status as a world leader had been undermined. In light of the Middle East Accord, are you rethinking your position?
No, because I do think he has let the American people down something. He's had significant damage on the office of the presidency. I mean, it's wonderful that this peace accord is taking place. It's one more step in a process that started back in the 1970s when presidents started to become directly involved. As the Prime Minister said, however, it's really going to be up to those leaders to implement it. It's a process, I'm afraid, that's going to continue. And I think we all have to recognize that King Hussein had a very big role to play as well. These elections aren't going to be decided on this, if that's what we're talking about. These elections are going to be decided on the local issues.
So the election week from Tuesday will not be a referendum on the character of Bill Clinton?
It won't be a referendum on the character of Bill Clinton. It'll be the same kind of referendum we've had since the Republicans took over the control of the Congress in '94. Every election since then has seen Republican gains, and that's been a referendum on the policies of the president, not the character.
Reverend Jackson, a week from Tuesday, people go to the polls. What's it all about? What's it a referendum on?
Let me say first, I feel especially good about this Middle East peace agreement President Clinton has worked through tough negotiations. Because under Kissinger and Ford, they organized a no-talk policy. I argued if you couldn't talk, you couldn't act, you couldn't change things. And so to see us go from not talking to the PLO, which left Israel less secure, to talking with both sides, finding common ground, exchanging land for peace, those steps represent leadership molding opinion, not following opinion polls. That, in some sense, I feel vindicated by it, but I also think President Clinton had one of his finest hours. It showed he still has real strength in the world community.
This election week from Tuesday, will it be a referendum on Bill Clinton?
You know, in the field, Republicans are running from two things: contract on America and this idea of impeachment. Because in the real world, 1,500 Americans are dying a day from cancer. Women dying from ovarian and breast cancer, prostate and testicular cancer for men. And they are still supporting the tobacco lobby. Jim Bunning is in trouble right now in Kentucky, of all places, because he fought against the Carol Moseley Brown Act to modernize urban and rural schools. And Mud Creek, Kentucky, and Alston County, Kentucky, where 30% of the people don't have telephones, Pikeville, Kentucky, he's written off Appalachia. And so when you vote against more teachers, vote against refurbishing schools, you don't fight for affordable health care, those are the issues that are resonating in the field.
Gary Bauer, a week from Tuesday, Americans go to the polls. What will they be deciding? What's at stake?
Well, in a lot of these races, Tim, there are local issues that are predominating and so forth. I want to put Jesse's mind at ease. I expect to be at Jim Bunning's Senate swearing in a couple of, after he wins that election in a week or so. I think he's going to do very well. But, look, I think the president does affect the race in this way. I think the last 10 months, because it's been so depressing, it's really elevated character issues and values issues. You get a lot of talk now about the virtue deficit that I've been talking about for a long time. I think that's going to motivate millions of voters that get out to vote because of issues of reliable standards of right and wrong. I think you're going to see a big pickup in the votes of traditional voters, Catholics, evangelicals, and others. That's going to be bad news for the president and his party because those voters tend to vote conservative Republican.
Republicans have not been as united as many times in the past. Dr. James Dobson, a good friend of yours, had this to say. Let me show you on the screen. Republican leaders have again abandoned their pro-family and pro-moral base without which they could not have achieved power. He's talking about the Congressional Republican Party.
Well, he's talking about a couple of the leaders that Jim has been very frustrated with, as have many people. You know, there was high expectations that we would be able to get more out of the Congress. But Dr. Dobson understands, just as I do, that the real roadblock here is not Republicans in Congress. It's the president that blocked tax cuts, that made it impossible to deal with the marriage penalty, that vetoed educational choice provisions, and continues to allow partial birth abortion to continue.
Non-budget item moral issues is not the issue in Appalachia of a coal miner dying every 6 hours from black lung disease and can't get black lung benefits. That's a moral issue, too. People cannot get health tests about cancer until 50 because of HMOs, and they're dying disproportionately. So this issue about private morality is being seen proportional to issues of public policy and public morality.
Well, can I say something here, Tim? I mean, if we look around the country, you are going to see incredible gains, I believe, particularly in the gubernatorial races in where you've had Republican governors, where people have seen what Republican governors have done. What the people care about is they care about education. That's a moral issue to make sure every child, no matter where they live, gets a quality education. That's where the governors have been the leaders. That's where Republicans have been the leaders. And, you know, the president's taking a lot of credit now for this new money that's been put in for more teachers. There are two things that I have a problem with that. One, we want more teachers. That's great. But every district that accepts those teachers has to understand it's just the way they're coming up now against the problem with the police that we got from the federal government. That program only lasts for 3 years. After that, you got to fund it on yourself and figure out how to do that. But two, it was the president. And this speaks exactly to what Reverend Jackson, I think, cares about deeply. The president's the one who put on the table yet again, and this time it happened, deep cuts in social service programs, direct block grant programs to those communities and those organizations that can make a difference for unwed mothers, for people living with AIDS. These are the important issues that people are going to have to look at, and this president bears part of the responsibility for the fact that we're losing that money. And what I see happening across the country is going to be good Republican wins because of the track record of Republicans when in office. Tax cuts, balanced budget, education programs.
Let me get someone here to defend the president. He's a Democratic governor and the chairman of the Democratic Party. Governor Romer?
Well, you know, we couldn't have a clear definition of what's going to be involved in this election in the last 10 or 12 days. We have the Democrats in Congress and the president trying to help education. The Republicans were trying to kill it. They tried to kill those funds for teachers. You know, we had in that bill after-school programs, child literacy programs. It was only Democrats who fought for that. You go to health, HMO. Republicans killed our ability to have an HMO Bill of Rights. They killed our ability to have some progress on tobacco legislation. And it was only the president and the Democrats who really saved that surplus so we could have it for Social Security. So, Tim, I think we got a real good chance in picking up some gains this year in the election because the issues of education health, saving Social Security are on our side. I tell you, there's a very clear contrast. People are going to forget
Democrats are going to gain seats in the House or Senate?
You know, look, historically, we would have lost 25. We're going to gain a whole lot more than that, and I tell you, I think we're going to turn out vote. You're going to be surprised what we're going to do, but it's because they got money on their side, they have history on their side, but we have good candidates and good issues. I tell you, we have the high ground on these issues, and people know it.
There may be almost a revolt against so much focus on, media focus on sex, Republicans on impeachment, but I submit to you that people are revolting saying, let us express ourselves. When we fight for 100,000 new teachers and smaller classroom sizes, that's a big deal. But these are urban and rural schools and libraries not wide for the net, and Republicans brag about killing, modernizing our schools. What does that say to rural America or to urban America? It says that they do have live options come Dignity Day, November 3rd.
Gary Bauer?
Well, Tim, these guys have got the party lined up pretty good this morning. But look, this will be about the fourth election in a row where they're trying to define victory with losing less seats than was anticipated. The Clinton years have been a disaster, not only for the United States, but for the Democratic Party. They've lost 50 House members over those years, a dozen governors, about that many members of the United States Senate. State legislatures around the country since '94 have swung massively in the direction of the Republican Party. And, you know, we keep hearing the spin all the time about saving Social Security and HMOs. Let me ask you, Roy, saving Social Security, the president forced $30 billion to be spent in the last 2 weeks that he wouldn't give to the American people in tax relief.
Oh, no, that's not true,
Wasn't that money for
No, let me
Social
tell you, the
Security?
Republicans came to the table with a good bit of pork for their own districts and for a military expenditure. There's one other issue we ought to get on the table, and that's choice. Let me tell you, that's going to be a key issue in many of these races. And what happened in New York, where that doctor was shot by that sniper in front of his own family and children, I tell you, we all got a responsibility for not allowing this debate on ideological, moral issues to rise to the level of intensity that we create hate out there that produces this kind of reaction.
Well, let me, in fact, Governor, 1 second. Let me put on the screen a letter that the dead doctor wrote shortly before he died. This is the Buffalo News. But please don't feign surprise, dismay, and certainly not innocence when a more volatile and less restrained member of the group decides to react to their inflammatory rhetoric by shooting an abortion provider. They all share the blame. That was written some 60 days ago by the Governor Whitman and Mr. Bauer.
And really what it says to me is that even though young Matthew Shepard was killed or lynched out in Wyoming, Republicans resist extending hate crime protection to women, the disabled, gays, and lesbians. I mean, 1898, we were fighting for federal anti-lynching laws. Now gays, lesbians, women, abortion doctors are being lynched. We must, in fact, take a strong moral position and say, stop the hate,
Reverend
stop the
Jackson,
killing.
you're not blaming the Republicans for those deaths.
No, I'm not, but I'm simply saying that there's a climate, the climate of intolerance, I tell you what I do blame them for, not extending the anti-hate crime provision to include women, the disabled, the gays and lesbians. I blame them for that because they have an opportunity to, in fact, extend those protections.
Mr. Bauer, then Governor Whitman.
Right, Tim, yeah, I have a particular interest in this because in the last couple of weeks there have been people in the Democratic Party and in the media that have suggested that somehow conservatives or Christians are responsible for that horrible death in Colorado. The death in Colorado is the result of a couple of thugs. They are not Republicans. They are not Christians. Neither is the individual responsible for this murder in New York. Both of those people ought to get the death penalty, and it is not up to the standards of American politics to try to smear a party or conservatism or men and women of faith with outrages like we've seen in New York and Wyoming.
Governor Whitman?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, those were the works of aberrants. Of course, we all have to take responsibility for the moral climate that we're in, and as we try to teach taking personal responsibility for actions, we need to look at all our leaders to demonstrate that, to show how you take, that every time you make a decision and you take an action, there are consequences, and you have responsibility for those consequences. But I believe that when you get back to this election, the only impact that what's happening at the federal level will be on turnout. That'll be the primary impact. And voters are going to be deciding on taxes and education. And again, I mean, Roy, even in your own state, the Republican candidate is ahead, and he's ahead particularly among those people who care about education, because he has laid out a very comprehensive plan of making a difference in the classroom, not having government, big government, make all the decisions.
That's just not true.
Change things in the
not
classroom.
true. The
Oh, yes, it
Republican
is.
candidate is not ahead in Colorado. It's a even Steven race, and certainly not on education. Let me tell you, the most clear-cut political issue in
Not
America is
the
education.
latest
If there's
poll.
ever a label of that party, when they tried to kill the president and the Democrats' attempt to put more teachers and reduce class size, that was a defining moment as to the difference between these
Come
two
on, Roy,
parties.
you know those came with strings. You know the decision should be made at the local level.
Let me jump
Jim
in
Bunning
here.
in Kentucky and
Reverend Jackson,
and DeMotto in such big trouble. These are very top-notch Republicans who resisted expanding education and refurbishing these schools, and people are rebelling.
The headlines in the papers today, Democrats pressing black voter turnout. And it's very clear, Reverend Jackson, unless blacks save the Democratic Party a week from Tuesday, their candidates for Congress and Senate are going to lose all across the country.
That's perhaps true, but you know, in '84 when I ran, we went on 2 million new voters, and Democrats regained the Senate. They defied the pollsters because those votes were inspired. In '88, we expanded the party again with that electrified vote. Of course, '88, then '89, Bill Wilde, and then in '89, Dave Dinkins and like. By '92, it carried us into Clinton's victory over Bush. In '94, when that vote felt it had been distanced from with DLC-type politics, that vote went down, the vote went down, Gingrich went up. When that vote does come back up, it inspires a coalition of workers and women and the multicultural base, we have victory. I predict we're going to have a net gain in the House and the Senate November 3rd, which we call Dignity Day, because we see that our survival stakes are here. And because Democrats, blacks have been so loyal, blacks should at least begin to expect to have a place on that ticket in year 2000. It's time for it now.
Last week on this program, I had Minister Louis Farrakhan join us. I asked him whether blacks should vote for Democrats, Republicans. He said it's a choice between Satan or Lucifer. I asked whether or not he would support Jesse Jackson for president in the year 2000. He said no, because you cannot win, and all you do is recruit voters and then turn them over to somebody else who don't do anything for black Americans.
Well, we don't share the same values, nor do we share the same analysis. What happened was, in '84, when we inspired new voters, Democrats regained the Senate. We inspired new voters, we strengthened our hold on the party. It meant that people, for example, if we win November 3rd, it does mean that Charlie Ring will become chair of House Ways and Means. It does mean that Gephardt will replace Newt Gingrich. So each time we have won, we have broadened the base of coalition. And the great issues we raised, whether it was PLO, Israel, New Middle East Dialogue, or Free Mandela, our issues won, and our participation was felt.
Will Jesse Jackson run for president in the year 2000?
I have not made the final decision. I'm giving it serious consideration. I'm not determined to enter the race, but I have determined to set the pace, to set the priorities. And I consider you, because of our numbers, our loyalty, and our public policy issues, there should be a black on that ticket in year 2000.
You sound like you're leaning towards
Tim,
running.
could I say something here?
That is, I'm leaning in that direction. The decision is not final, but I say to you, the groundwork has been laid for a real serious
Governor
challenge
Rover, would you like
in
to see
2000.
Jesse Jackson get in the race for president?
I would like to see Jesse Jackson absolutely more active, because he's a great leader and he
You'd like
brings
to see him run
security.
for president?
I got a responsibility not to call balls and strikes on that one.
Well, let him in the race, though.
Oh, in the race, that's great.
Get him in. Governor Whitman, in 1992, the year of the woman, Carol Moseley Braun, Barbara Boxer, Patricia Murray ran as women, largely focusing on Clarence Thomas and his appointment to the Supreme Court and issues like sexual harassment. They've been relatively quiet on the issue of President Clinton. Is that going to be an issue in those races?
Actually, that's where probably those are the most key races where that will be an issue, because people don't like hypocrisy. And they see that. Carol Moseley Braun's in trouble. Barbara Boxer's in trouble. They're in trouble because they were so out front, not just on Clarence Thomas, but they were also, as they should have been, on the tailgate issue. They were all over the place on those issues. They were out hammering every day. And yet they've been absolutely dead silent on this issue, which I believe has done more damage to women over the last 9 months, the last year, than all the work that they've done in the previous
Carol has been
12 months. It's been a real problem. The fact that we've allowed somebody to go forward, watch women's reputations be torn down, bring in all their past sexual history, all the stuff we fought for. I've passed legislation that doesn't allow that kind of thing to come into rape trials because it's so unfair to women.
Carol
And yet we've
Mosley-Braun
allowed
has-
that to happen. And
all right,
Carol Mosley-Braun has other problems, I agree.
Let me give Gary Brower a chance for a last word here. Go ahead,
You
Gary.
know, Tim, the thing that I've really been worried about is the impact of this on our American sons, my sons, other people's sons, the lessons that the president has taught our sons about how women can be treated, about how you honor your word, what family life means. These are horrible lessons. It drives me to distraction to hear people say, this is private conduct. It has no public consequences. It has incredible public consequences. And we're going to be cleaning up this gunk, Jesse, for a long, long time.
It does say illicit relationships are not good, but it also says we live in our faith, we live under public policy. And so when you fight to give those who inherit $16 million or more a $1 billion tax break, and cut low-income energy
Jesse, character has an impact on public policy.
That's not what this election is about. This election is not about that. This election is about leadership. It's about a president who, you know, King Hussein can say, I've never seen his equal in all the presidents I've known.
Well,
that was obviously conduct that was not right, but that's not what this election is about.
To be
This
continued.
election is about opportunity for people, and that's tax cuts, jobs, economic growth.
All right, Governor Whitman, Roy Romer, Jesse Jackson, Gary Bauer, to be continued. Next up, James Carville has a new book, and the horse he rode in on, The People versus Ken Starr. And here to help rein James in, his Republican wife, Mary Madeline.
People, today's agenda, the information age.
What happened to the industrial age?
That was last century.
Those were the days. You built it, you sold it.
No more living in the past. Today, it's not just what you make, it's what you know that matters.
He always gets so proactive around the millennials.
All I know is they need help communicating down there. Look, he just quit, and years of knowledge are going out the door with him.
Isn't there a way to capture what he knows?
Over there, she's got thousands of documents on the network.
Finding the one she needs should be simpler.
He's got half a good idea over there, she's got the other half.
We get the picture.
What are we supposed to do about it?
Make it simpler for people to exchange ideas.
Share documents. Have conversations.
Right, so they create knowledge they can use.
They'll need a digital office.
With new software, new hardware.
Relax, I've got us a partner down there.
But they only make...
Not anymore, they don't. Oh. Keep the conversation going. Share the knowledge. The Digital Document Company, Xerox.
A pound of regular ground beef has more than 90 grams of fat. Harvest Burgers for Recipes is fat-free. It's already browned, so you can use it wherever you'd use brown ground beef. And make all your favorite foods a whole lot lower in fat. Want the flavor without the fat? Get all vegetable Harvest Burgers for Recipes from Green Giant.
Because there is a man in Chicago planning his retirement this year. Because there is a family in Boston who hopes to send their kids to college someday. Because there is a doctor in New York looking forward to the day she will open her own clinic. Because the dreams of every investor continue to change in a complex world, so too have we. Which is why at Morgan Stanley Dean Witter, we measure success one investor at a time.
In this corner, Carville. In this corner, Madeline. Right after this brief station break.
Boys and girls, beware. It's time for the Today Show's Halloween costume contest. So create a new you that comes down and say boo. Friday on Today. Breaking news, inside sources, expert opinions. Geraldo Rivera getting to the heart of the investigation of the president. Rivera Live at CNBC.
Find out if you're a winner. Watch the Washington State Lottery drawing live every night at 7 on Northwest Cable News, the official Washington State Lottery Network.
The people of America should be running our government. That's the way it was set up in the first place. The problem is special interests and paid lobbyists who control Washington politicians. The answer is term limits. Term limits replace Washington insiders with new people who reflect community interests, not politics as usual. Molly Bordenero has signed the pledge to limit her terms in Congress. David Wu refuses. Call David Wu and tell him to sign the U.S. Term Limits Pledge.
News Channel 8 can also be seen on these local translators.
And we're back. First of all, Corporal Q-Ball Carville, happy birthday.
Thank you. 54 of them.
33 years ago, you were fighting in the Marine Corps, and here you are now.
Well, I was in County, California, fighting the traffic more than anything else.
Mary Madeline, your husband is an author, and the horse he rode in on, The People versus Ken Starr, and the very first page, a picture of Ken Starr at a trash bin. Mr. Carville, that's the only photo you could find?
No, it was the one I wanted to put because that sort of summarizes my feelings about Ken Starr and his report. And I tell you what, in the first sentence of the book is, you know something, I don't like Ken Starr. I don't like him. I don't like what he's done to my friend the president. And if people want to say I came after him with a rhetorical meat cleaver, that's fine. I did it in this book, and I'm going to continue to do it as long as he continues his nickel-dime obsession with the president's sex life. I don't like the man at all. I don't like the people that work for him. I don't like nothing about him. And if you don't like him, you ought to go out and buy this book.
In all honesty, over the last 10 months, has the Clinton White House not put some trash in that trash bin?
I think Ken Starr's put most of the trash. Now, if people want to say the president put trash in there, let them do that. He's my buddy. He's a great day to be a Clinton person, man. Just when you see what King Hussein said about this president, you see what Nelson Mandela said about this president, and on the other side you got Bill Bennett and Jerry Falwell. Who you believe's got more integrity and character? King Hussein and Nelson Mandela, Bill Bennett and Jerry Falwell. People know this president's doing the job. That's why 2/3 of the people want him to stay in office. They see him doing it every day, and I'm going to defend him right down to the end. And I don't like Starr. I don't like what he's done to my friend, and I don't like what he's done to my country.
Mary Madeline?
Clearly, I didn't give him his drugs on his birthday morning. Václav Havel also said, in a nation of laws, everybody must pay attention to the laws. Everybody has to pay. Look, this is what it is. I don't pretend to read any of James' books, but in our family, you don't have to have any facts to have an opinion, which is clear. So I'll go with what the reviewers said of it. It is what it is, which is to say it's a screed, it's a polemic, and I think it's sad on two grounds. One, that you have taken, and your party has taken, a good man like Ken Starr and denigrated him the way that you have. And secondly, that this party is nothing but hate. We're turning out our voters this week. We hate Ken Starr. We hate Newt Gingrich. What are you going to do when Newt's term limited out and the independent counsel is over in this case? Who are you going to hate next? Is that what your party's about? Yes.
Well, let me say this. First of all, he's a cigarette lawyer. So let's start with what it really is. The second thing, I'll tell you what we hate. We hate tobacco companies rolling over people. We hate the fact that the Republicans killed the tobacco bill. We hate HMOs running over patients. That's why we hate the fact that the Republicans killed the HMO Bill of Rights. We hate the way that they fund campaigns in America. That's why we hate the fact that the Republicans killed campaign finance reform. And let me say this. The Democrats are going to do better than people think in this election if they spend the next 9 days holding this Republican Congress accountable for what they didn't do, for what they stopped, and the opportunities that they missed. So my message to Democrats is, if we want to do good in this election, get out there, attack, tell the people what's happening in this Congress.
So this election week from Tuesday is not a referendum on the character of Bill Clinton?
I'll tell you what, I wish it would be a referendum on the job that he's done. I wish it'd be a referendum on peace in Northern Ireland, peace in the Middle East, about unprecedented prosperity, about low crime rates, about the magnificent job that this president's done, and about the unbelievable esteem that he's held in by world leaders. Speaking of Mr. Havel, Mr. Havel basically put the president up for canonization, if I remember what he said, right?
Say,
your husband's turning into a real foreign policy wonk here, Mary.
I was going to say, he doesn't even know where he is on a map. Look, every election since your president has been in the Oval Office has resulted in losses for his party. Let me give the numbers that Gary started to, and the ones that you did last week. 49 House seats lost, 11 Senate seats lost, 14 governors lost, 23 state legislative chambers, 500 state legislators, 370 Democrats have switched to the Republican Party. That is your president's legacy. That's what he's done for your party. And look, if we're not for your Social Security giveaway, your centralized, socialized health care reform, we're not for your policies, that doesn't mean we're against reform in those areas. They set up the straw man on every argument.
Right.
It sounds good. It means nothing.
James, they call Social Security a giveaway. We call it the greatest retirement program in the history of the world.
Your
people
reform
work.
is more giveaway. Your
it's not a
reform
giveaway.
is more giveaway.
The Democratic program, people want it protected. They're going to go out, I believe, the Democrats put it in the right context, they're going to go out and vote.
Let me show you the numbers that Mary was talking about and get your reaction. Right. This is what happened to Democrats. In 1993, when you masterminded the president's campaign for the presidency, 259 members of the House were Democrats, now 206. Look at the Senate. That's 20% loss under Bill Clinton. The Senate, there were 58. Now there are 45, down 22%. Governors, 1993, 30 Democratic governors, now 17, a loss of 43%. Right. A Democrat said the president had this policy of triangulation. have the House Democrats, Republican Democrats, and he ran against both, and that resulted in strangulation for Democrats all across the country. Fair?
Yeah, look, I tell you what, that's the past. And if you want these numbers, if you Democrats out there and you want these numbers to get worse, stay home a week from Tuesday. If you want to change this around, if you want to take this country back from the Newt Gingriches and the Ken Starrs, if you want to set something out and do something differently, then go out and vote. If you want to do something about Social Security, if you want to do something about cigarette companies, if you want to do something about HMOs running over patients, if you want to do something about campaign finance reform, go out and vote. You're right, those numbers are not good. I don't like them, but what I'm focused on is this election coming up so we can take this country back and return it to decent, fair-minded people and stop this investigating and start legislating.
In all candor, the President of the United States did nothing to demoralize and depress Democrats this year.
No, I don't think. I mean, I tell you what. I think when you look at it, I think we actually missed the opportunity. I think Democrats. We'll wait and see on election day. But my sense in my mail and going out there and talking to people is, I think we're going to have we can have a fairly activated Democratic base if Democratic candidates go out and talk about these issues, if they're aggressive, and if they hold the Republican Congress accountable. If we pursue a strategy of timidity in not talking about these things, no, people are going to stay home.
Can I talk about this Republican Congress? They have managed to do in 40 years what the Democrats who controlled, in 4 years, what the Democrats couldn't do in 40 years. Everyone's whining about the budget agreement. Can we step back and get some context, not just those numbers? First balanced budget in a generation, first surplus in a generation, welfare reform, IRS reform. This is the Republican Congress. People should be proud to go out there and vote for Republicans on Tuesday.
But Mary Madeline, Jack Kemp, Bob Novak, Rick Santorum, senator from Pennsylvania, said, we paid $21 billion in blackmail and got out of town. The Republicans didn't cut taxes. The Republicans surrendered to the president on practically every major issue. Quote, unquote. I'm quoting Republicans.
This is look, he's always Captain Jack or whoever you are, Corporal Beanball. This is a
Corporal Cue Ball Carvo.
Cue Ball, rolling in.
This is a war. Excuse me, let me finish. This is a war. That was a battle. This is a tactical retreat to regroup and wait for reinforcements. They're going to pick up seats in the House, in the Senate, and the governors, and then what they need to do after they expand their margin is, and I love all these factions. I want to harness the energy. We are a party of many leaders and deeply held convictions. Harness an energy and then do what Governor Bush is doing in Texas and soon-to-be Governor Bush in 48 hours in Florida, and Tommy Thompson and John Inglis reach beyond the typical base for non-traditional Republican voters. We are the millennial promise.
The Republicans,
get used to it.
You will acknowledge, Mary, the Republicans did retreat and surrender and give Bill Clinton.
A tactical retreat. Sherman used to do it. Grant used to do it for reinforcement.
And then they're going to come back in 1999 and do what?
Republicans out there, vote on this. You want more tax cuts, get more tax cuts.
Has the Republican revolution fizzled?
There is no revolution. It's an evolution. I mean, so there's a lot of rhetoric. Will you quit laughing, honey? You're losing. You're losing. You lost. If you weren't losing, you'd write a book on policy, not some screed, some polemic, some cowboy hat.
Hold on. I declared war against Newt Gingrich on this show about 3 weeks ago. And I can't find him. I'm trying to fight him. He's retreated on the budget. He caved on the budget. He's up in Michigan. After claiming he was going to mention the president in every speech, he can't mention President Clinton's name. I'm looking for him. Come out the grass, man. Let's have a war here.
Battle fatigue, man. You have post-traumatic syndrome. Calm down.
I'm not having battle fatigue. I'm trying to chase the man around the country. He won't come out. He caved on everything.
What would you do without Ken Starr and Newt Gingrich?
But what I do without Ken Starr, I'll tell you what I do without Ken. I would write a book talking about how we lost this tobacco bill, about what we can do about campaign finance reform, about what we can do about education, how the Democrats are superior on all these things. I go after Ken Starr for a very simple reason. He's the wrong man in the wrong job, and he's trying to hurt a friend of mine. And you come after a friend of James Carville's, and I'm going to come back after you with a rhetorical meat cleaver. And I'm going to keep doing that to that guy. And that's important to me as a person, that I stand up not just for the things I believe in, but for the people I believe in.
You know, because it's your birthday, I'm going to agree on something and hope that a positive that comes out of your polemical insanity is that we, for once, agree, the two parties, how insane the independent counsel statute, which your president reauthorized in 1993, is, and that we can work together to have it revoked.
Mary Madeline, on a week from Tuesday, why isn't Bill Clinton's character become the dominant issue? And is this election any longer a referendum on whether or not to go forward with aggressive impeachment hearings?
I never thought this election was going to be about President Clinton. I never thought that anything was going to happen to him because we have decided as a nation that his philandering and lying about it is not traumatic to us. And my theory on that is because we've always had such low expectations for his personal character, and he has consistently risen to them. So nobody is surprised or traumatized by this
behavior whatsoever. And no, it's not going to be a referendum on it.
What will happen a week from Tuesday? Republicans gain how many seats in the House and Senate?
8 to 10 in the House, 2 to 3 in the Senate. They will pick up more governorships, which, as you know, is so important for redistricting, and as Christy Whitman said, so important for getting the nation's business done out there, where education is really taken care of, where taxes are really cut, where government is really efficient.
James Carville, do you disagree with Mary Madeline? The Democrats will lose 8 to 10 House seats, lose 2 to 3 Senate seats, which will guarantee Republican control of the House and Senate for the next 10 years.
No, if we lose, highest if we lose 8 seats, going to guarantee Republican control of the House.
Because the Democrats will be owed 200 members in the House of Representatives.
Guaranteed that we're going to lose it for the next 8 to 10 years. We're supposed to lose it coming out saying we're going to lose 25. Gingrich predicted we were going to lose between 20 and 40 seats. I'm just telling you what your own speaker, your maximum leader, said. He said they were going to gain between 20 and 40 seats in the House.
At the beginning of the year, your maximum leader said you were going to win the House of Representatives.
Can you let me finish just on my birthday, please?
It's my birthday, and I'll whine if I want to.
We got to go. James Carville, Mary Madeline. We'll be right back with a little bit more. And then John Glenn heading back into space, just as he envisioned some 35 years ago, right here on Meet the Press.
Meet the Press is sponsored by the Archer Daniels Midland Company. ADM, supermarket to the world.
This plant is a rich source of natural vitamin E.
This plant uses that source to make enough vitamin E to meet the daily requirement of nearly 450 million people.
This is a soybean plant.
And this is an Archer Daniels Midland vitamin E plant, where soybeans are used to produce natural vitamin E, officially recognized to have 36% greater potency than synthetic vitamin E. 2 very different plants, 1 very essential vitamin. Another reason why ADM is supermarket to the world.
A place of visionaries. A place of dynamos. A place where if you want, you really can change the world. A place of doers and darers and shapers. Who's next? The New York Stock Exchange. The world puts its stock in us.
It flies away from false boundaries.
Through the rare air and blue altered sky, silent and proud.
It rides on the glory of the world waking day.
The GE people who service jet engines share a common passion for their work.
Genius of steel, web of power.
And none express this more poetically than the GE technicians in Nantgarw or Wales.
It was all shining and bright, spinning in time.
And I heard in the turning
the whisper of truth, working in wonder, humbled in detail.
I stand spellbound
in the beauty of perfection.
In GE service sites all over the world, the result of all this pride and passion is simply jet engines that run like pure poetry.
And so in the legend of Blue Fields, the sleep of the innocent lay undisturbed and just.
We're getting there.
It's been a great year. Our vision is starting to come to life.
But our business is growing faster than our infrastructure.
Any ideas?
Well, we need to upgrade the IT systems, the scope, reliability.
Scalability.
What we don't have is time.
What you do have is EDS. We brought the World Cup from zero to the size of a Fortune 500 company with a global audience of billions in just 3 years. Now, what can EDS do for your business?
Mary Madeline, you know Leslie Gore, but keep it up. James Carville, happy birthday. When John Glenn was a young 43, he hinted he might have one more space flight in him.
One more question. Like most of us, except Mr. Spivak here, the astronauts are getting close to 40, or pretty near it, or into it. Is there any time limit set on, age limit on the astronauts' age going up there to the big yellow moon?
No, there's been none at all yet. I feel as long as we stay in good shape and can keep qualified, I don't see increasing age as any obstacle here.
And just last year, I showed John Glenn that tape and asked him about his intentions. John Glenn's in good shape. Look at you. Are you qualified to go back up into space at age 75?
Yeah, I've wanted to go up again for the last 25 or 30 years and have said so repeatedly. I'd love to. But what's happened now that makes this very much different is there is real interest in the niceties of aging and geriatric experts and so on experiments that could be run on older people for this reason. The younger astronauts up there now have certain body changes that occur, cardiovascular system, immune system, osteoporosis, things like that occur in about the first week, and when they come back to Earth, they return to normal. Now, those same changes go on in an elderly person like me as a normal process of aging.
So as long as you can establish a good scientific reason, you are raring to go.
Absolutely, but it does have to have that, and I wouldn't push myself in here and say, just because I'm a senator, I want to go up on your space program now. That's not good enough. We have to have a good science base, and when that science base is established, then would I like to do it? You bet I would.
Well, John Glenn, after you go back up, we want you to come right back and sit in that chair and tell us what it's all about.
Mark it.
Whether here on Earth or in space, Godspeed, John Glenn. And John Glenn is going in space on Thursday, true to his word. His first interview, when he returns, will be right here on Meet the Press 3 weeks from today, Sunday, November 15th. John Glenn, back from space. We'll be right back.
What's it going to take to get the network you need for the future?
Never happened.
Who's got the network know-how, the people, and the technology to take you there? Lucent Technologies. We make the things that make communications work.
How does it feel to drive the luxurious Lexus LS 400? Now you know.
Trust. We are not born with an instinct to trust. Trust must be earned. Trust must be proven. We earn it with integrity. We prove it with sound advice. Trust is the ultimate measure of our success. And that is why we measure success one investor at a time.
Introducing the remarkably innovative GE Profile Performance range with a revolutionary bridge that connects burners so you can cook any size dish. And its true temp oven is the most accurate in America, so you can also bake and broil like a gourmet. It's so versatile you could get carried away.
Dad, I usually just have cereal for breakfast.
The incredible Profile Performance range, only from GE.
Coming up on Dateline tonight.
Thanks, Tim. They were doctors and scientists trained to save lives. Instead, they designed diabolical weapons to destroy lives. Tonight, a Dateline exclusive, an insider's look at this organized campaign to kill at 8/7 Central on Dateline. Tim?
Thank you, Stone. Watch Katie and Matt in the morning, then Tom Brokaw at night. That's all for today. We'll be back next week if it's Sunday. It's Meet the Press.
Meet the Press has been sponsored by GE. Online at www.ge.com. GE, we bring good things to life.
Meet the Press is a presentation of NBC News. More Americans watch NBC News than any other news organization in the world.
Monday, exercise. You know it's important, but you may not know how important. At age 50, you can actually add years to your life.
It's just like I'm a kid again.
Extraordinary new information. How much do you need? What should you do?
It's never too late.
Living longer, living better. Nightly News with Tom Brokaw, 5 nights a week on NBC.
America's Funniest Game is back at Whoopi's Center Square.
Tell them Whoopi sent you.
It's Hollywood's
$60 flare. I hope these clothes are in a store close to our mall. Montgomery Ward. No. You're kidding.
We're changing everything to change your mind. It's not always easy making healthy choices in life. It's much more convenient to eat junk food and to put off exercise. But Providence Health Plan is both the healthy choice and the easy choice. because we offer the physicians you prefer, and they're all committed to our extraordinary level of care. Call toll-free 1-877-245-4077. Providence Health Plan, a caring difference you can feel.
How good can it get? A powerful 132 horsepower engine, the largest coupe interior in its class, split fold-down rear seats, race-inspired handling, and deluxe sound insulation for a quieter ride. How good can it get? It gets this good. Plymouth Neon. And now it gets even better. Plymouth Neon is just $10,620.
See your local Northwest Chrysler and Plymouth dealer.